Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, well, here we are.
Yep, here we are. Yeah. Um,
I have never seen myself in this.
I think it's the case of most of your stuff. You don't like watching yourself.
I don't watch any of it. So if I disappear, it's because I can't bear it.
Well, I won't be showing the episode itself because I can't due to copyright issues. So it'll just be yourself, me, and Ian talking about it.
Oh, fabulous. Okay.
For those that have already logged on, if you want to watch the episode while we're talking, just get your episode to hand and pause it on the open shot of the plane. And when we get round to starting it, we'll do a countdown from 5 and then press play together. If you don't have the episode, don't worry. It's more of a general conversation anyway, so it shouldn't make much of a difference.
Well, hello, dear.
Hello, darling. How are you?
You're looking good.
You too. You too. Get old, will you?
I know we all. We're all so old, aren't we, dear?
Hi, Ian. You okay?
Yes, thanks. Well, actually, if I stop and have a terrible cough, I've got this 100-day cough, which apparently is going around a bit.
Right.
Oh, darling, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Now, where are you now? You're not in France anymore, are you? You're in
No, I'm in Lincoln. I'm in Lincoln, just outside Lincoln.
Oh, nice. That sounds lovely. Is it?
Yeah, good. It's fine. It's a little tiny village. I'm living the bucolic village English life, you know.
Couldn't be nice. I envy you sometimes.
Church bells and horses clopping past the door, and
lovely, lovely.
WI meetings and all of that.
Yeah. How nice. How nice.
Gardening, but it's filthy cold. It's really cold. So
that's what everybody who's lived here does miss. They all miss the weather here, don't they?
Yeah. Well, I was just there very briefly to come in and check on the kids and Peter and everything, and so
right.
And it was cold there. It was raining.
Yeah, we had a cold, wet winter, darling. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
I know.
Oh, well.
Where's the kitten?
The kitten. He's rather antisocial, this new cat. He's quite sweet, but he kind of hides under things. I think he's a bit wild. He's a bit feral, I think. He's actually quite big now. He's like sort of this big, you know. He's a cat now. Yeah, but he likes the dogs best. Of all of the people in this house, he's most fond of the dogs.
That's lovely. That's nice. That's nice. They don't
usually. Philip, what are we starting?
Almost.
1 minute to go, right?
Yeah, I'm just making sure nobody's having any more tech issues or anything. I think we're all pretty good.
I can't fix my Philip, so we're gonna have to put up with it.
Yeah, sorry. I was just trying to get Carolyn so she can see all of us in gallery view. But speaker view, but that's not really.
There we are. I've got gallery view now.
Well, where did you find it on your phone?
I'm on my laptop, actually, darling.
What does whiteboards mean?
It should be a little thing at the top right, which I've got on my screen, which says view. Have you got something that says view?
I have nothing that says view, which is why it's so bizarre.
But can you see us? Can you see Philip and me?
Very clearly. I can't see Philip and you together. I only see you.
No. Okay. It's whoever's talking will come up on your screen. That's what. Isn't that right, Philip?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter, but what you don't have to worry about what you can see. As long as we can see you, that's important.
No. I gather we're still doing this thing in September.
What thing?
The film I told you about.
Are we? Is that happening, huh?
Yeah.
Believe it when I see it.
Well, I think it will happen. I spent a tortured day doing some work on it with them.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
They were lovely. They were all lovely. It was all lovely.
Who's the director on this?
David Mansell.
Right.
Or David Mansell.
Mansell. Okay.
Yeah. He's lovely. He's lovely. He's great fun. The cameraman is divine. Lighting guy is a huge Serbian fellow who's fun.
Wow. So you've already done a bit on it, huh?
Yeah.
Good for you.
It's good. Didn't matter what I look like, thank God.
Well, you look good. Yeah, you look very good.
I wish I'd seen you. I was just so busy with everything.
I know. I understand.
It goes so fast.
Yeah. Right.
Be out again shortly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we'll make a start. So thank you everybody for joining us for this watch along of the arrangement. If you want to watch the episode as we go, if you just want to get the episode in front of you and pause it on the opening shot of the aeroplane, I'll do a countdown from 5, then we'll press play together. So you just want to take 10 seconds or so to do that, and then we shall make a start. Okay, so here we go. So your mind's, yep, okay. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and play. The first thing I wanted to ask you both, in the opening scene, there's an actor called David Healy who plays a rather amusing drunk American tourist. Do either of you recall the gentleman?
I do, yes. I'm sure you do. Do you, Carolyn?
David no.
Healy, he was one of those. I think he was American or Canadian. I think, and if so, I think he was one of those expat American or Canadians who lived in England and who never stopped working because there was always a need for American actors or Canadian actors, and they all worked all the time. It was a very good career for them actually, because there weren't that many of them. And David Healy was one of them. Now, if I'm wrong and he's a Brit, just putting on an accent, I'm going to look like an idiot. But I have a feeling he was either Canadian or American. Philip, can you confirm that?
I will have a little look. While I'm doing that, I was just wondering, Caroline, how you came aboard the episode in the first place.
Married to the director.
Usually, yeah, simple as that.
Also, Carolyn, jolly good casting too. Jolly good casting. Come on.
No, I mean, it had to do with Peter, but it also, I think, because they already had Sarah, didn't they? And we did look extraordinarily alike when we were very young. So it worked. It worked. You're going to have to answer for what you said about me in your book.
Am I? I'm going to have to answer for that.
But you were absolutely right. What did he say?
Yeah.
Ask him.
There was a scene in quite a busy street at night. I think it was in Soho somewhere, or Water Street or somewhere like that. We were shooting a scene and Carolyn was in the car. And for some reason you were being difficult with your husband, Peter. I don't know why. You decided that evening you didn't want to do what he wanted you to do. I can't remember what it was you wanted to do.
Try to direct me.
They were just getting, it was getting mildly tetchy in a husband and wife kind of way. It was quite funny. And a passerby came up to me and he said, "Excuse me, but is that Carolyn Seymour?" No, he didn't. He didn't say it to me. He said it to Peter, who was standing around. He said to Peter, "Excuse me, is that Carolyn Seymour in the car there?" And Peter said, "No, it is not. It's just a very bad actress," or something, to words to that effect. Yeah.
I know, but you didn't say. You said I was a brat, and you were probably right.
I didn't say you were a brat.
Yeah, you said something about me.
I never said anything rude about you in
the
car.
Yes, you did. Yes, you.
I said you were a shocking flirt.
I was always a shocking flirt.
Yeah. It was very funny. I remember you blew gently into Frankie Watts, the lighting cameraman's ear, for about half an hour while we were driving to another location. You were sitting in the back. Frankie was in the front. He was leant forward and just blew in his ear for about 25 minutes. He was paralyzed. He was completely paralyzed by this. A very funny lady. You've always been a very funny lady, Carolyn. Always, all your life, you've been very funny. Love you, did that.
I know, darling. Me too. But we couldn't do that now. It would be horrible.
Oh yes, we'd be cancelled, wouldn't we?
Yeah, we would immediately. I'd have been cancelled years ago. So what can I say? Right. Took a bit of the spark out of working.
All right, Philip, come along. Give us some more stuff you want to know.
I've yes, David was born in New York, but he did die over in London. He was a New Yorker. So Carolyn, had you been aware of the Return of the Saints series or the original Roger Moore? Had you?
Yes, of course. Oh yeah, no, I loved all of those. No, I knew. I mean, I knew them. I knew Roger too. So you know.
Did you do an original Saint, or were you too young for that?
I was too young for that.
Yeah,
Just,
right.
only by a smidge.
Mm.
I hadn't taken my clothes off enough at that point.
And how did you find working with Peter, Ian?
Oh, I love Peter. To this day, I love him. He lives here in California. I don't see nearly enough of him. In fact, I don't see anything of him at all because we're both rather reclusive now these days. But Peter was a lovely guy. He directed more than one. He directed 2 or 3, I think, episodes, and I always enjoyed working with him. He's a very lovely guy, Peter. Yes, great fun and easygoing, and
Wonderful with
very
actors.
relaxed
He
set. I always
loves
call it, Peter. Hmm?
He loves actors.
Yes.
He
Yes.
adores us and tends to let us have our way, which is why when he tries to direct it, used to piss me off.
Excuse my cough, guys. I'm sorry. I've got this 100-day cough and it won't go away.
No, I know. Sorry.
Well,
Go on, Philip.
One of the quite interesting bits in the opening of the scene is the when Carolyn pushes poor David down the escalator, and it just sort of struck me as a stunt falling down an escalator must be quite difficult. What did you think of seeing that again, Ian?
I don't think I was there for that day, by the way. And if I was, I didn't see the stunt. It was quite a stunt. I don't know who the stunt man was. We had several, on that thing, but I think it was actually a very dangerous stunt. Downstairs is bad enough. Down an escalator, which is moving, you can get bits of you caught in various things. I would have thought very dangerous. But I thought it was very well done, didn't you, Carolyn?
Yep. I did, but we used to take such risks. I mean, people weren't so cautious in those days. A lot of damage was done. Luckily, the stunt guy wasn't hurt.
Am I right, Ian? You never had any injuries on the Saint? It was all
well, I've talked about this whole stunt thing before about this, but when I first was on the show, I was very keen and to be macho and butch and to be the guy who did his stunts and all the rest of it. And I would do what I could, and eventually our stunt coordinator. I've told the story before. Sorry for all those people who've heard this story, but the stunt coordinator, whose name was Les Crawford, came up to me and he says, "Ian, you're being an asshole." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're doing my boys out of a job." He said, "To be honest with you, also they do it better than you do it. Everybody in the audience will think it's you. You can sit down and have a well-earned rest while somebody else does this stuff for you. And thirdly," he said, "if you hurt yourself, they stop shooting and everybody's out of work, which is a really bad thing." He said, "So please, would you stop doing this? It's not professional." So I took that very much to heart. And after that, I stopped doing stunts. When I say stunts, a stunt is something by definition which is so dangerous an actor really shouldn't be doing it at all. What most actors mean when they say they do their own stunts is they mean they do their own action, which means they'll do a fight scene. They'll ride a horse if they can do it. They'll ride a motorcycle if they can do it. They'll drive a car fairly quickly if they can do it. But anything else, like jumping off tall buildings, falling down moving escalators, or being on fire, or anything like that, of course they won't do it. I mean, that would be crazy. And so when actors say they do their own stunts, they're mostly lying or boasting or showing off, and it's not really true. They do their own action, yes. So that's the truth of it. And I remember once I was asked by a director, could I jump off a 10-foot wall? And I said, I could, but I could twist my ankle or break a leg, and that stopped shooting. I said, if you pull the camera back another 20 feet and let the stuntman do it, everybody will think it's me. So and that's what I used to do mostly. But mostly they didn't ask me, sensibly.
And Carolyn, did you do much stunt work in your career, and did you enjoy doing that kind of stuff?
Well, I did a lot of the, I rode horses and did all that sort of stuff because I like riding horses. I was lied to by a director once and ended up doing a fight scene, and when it was supposed to stop and my stunt person was supposed to come in, he just said, let's just try this, and just go to the end for a master. And so I ended up being thrown across the room onto a bank of monitors, which did, unfortunately, permanent damage to a couple of vertebrae. So that's why we don't do it, but they didn't stop or send me to a medic or do anything about it. They just slapped a bag of peas on it and said, get on with it.
Wow.
So I have done it.
I was wondering what you both recall of actor Donald Pickering.
Donald always played the same role, didn't he? He always played these upper class, slightly sneery, haughty man. He was very, very good at it. It was a specialty.
Very good at it.
Yeah. And I didn't have much to do with him. You had a lot to do with him, Karen, didn't you?
Yeah.
Did you get on well with him?
Total breeze, and lots of jokes. I mean, he was quite funny, but it was heaven to work with somebody who's so at home in that character. You know, it was easy. There was no fear, so it was lovely. It was lovely. He's a nice guy.
I mean, he crops up. Donald Pickering crops up in so many English TV and films all of that time. He's in everything. He never stopped working, of course, because he was such a useful type.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
he didn't mind being pigeonholed either.
No, I mean, well, it's yes, sensible actors don't actually.
No, I know.
I once asked Boris Karloff. I said to Boris Karloff, "Did you ever feel typecast?" He said, "Yes, and it was the best day of my life." He said, once I was typecast, I had a career. Before that, nobody knew what to do with me. But then I played the monster in the Frankenstein film, and all of a sudden, I had a wonderful, wonderful career. He said, He said, "We're all typecast, aren't we? Let's face it, we're all typecast because of the way we look and the way we speak and the way how tall we are." Quite right.
Yeah, it's true.
I was wondering about a lady called Vicky Richards, who has quite a memorable role in this episode. Whether you remember Vicky Richards, she actually sadly died only last month. She was 74.
Remind me what she played.
She's the sort of Carolyn's maid in the
episode. The evil maid. Yes. Again, I didn't have much to do with her. You had a bit to do with her, did you, Carolyn?
I had a bit in that, but she was great. She was fun to work with. She was good.
And one actor who I did have the pleasure of meeting a few years ago, Michael Medwin. Do you remember Michael at all?
Yes. Michael was very, very famous. You know, he was very famous for being famous, really, more than anything else. Wasn't he? Whose best friend was he? He was Albert Finney's best friend.
Him and Albert Finney. They had a company together, and I did a couple of things with them.
That's right. Of course they did. Yes.
I adored Michael. He had a wicked sense of humor.
Yes, he was one of those guys. He was one of those guys also who'd turn up in every British movie of the period. But as I say, yes, he was right. You're right. He was Albert Finney's best friend, and they had a company together. And
Memorial Films or something.
Memorial, was that what it was called?
Yeah, something like that. I spent a lot of time with all of them. I spent a lot of time with all of them. Had a great time with them all. And Michael was a great playboy. He was a good producer. He was really, really smart, and he had an incredibly soft spot for women. So he was a joy to be around. And very funny. I loved him. He was great.
Yes, he was a funny man. He was one of those lovely people who was a ball at a party. You know?
Yeah. He was. You always wanted him at your dinner parties. He was good.
I was wondering, because we're currently watching your seduction of Michael before you then throw him off the balcony. I was just wondering about sort of scenes where you have to be quite intimate with actors, whether you both came naturally, you've always considered it both to just be part of the role, or is it something that takes a bit while getting used to, sort of having to be quite intimate on set with people that you might not know?
I've never been asked that. Have you? I've never been asked that before. No, it wasn't difficult. I mean, one just went in, and you know that was the job. You were doing your job, so you just went in and pretended to kiss them. Did I mean sometimes it was horrible, but with Michael it wasn't. I knew him far too well, so it was like it was okay to do that. But I mean, not knowing people, sometimes it can be a little tricky. If you don't know them, and you've got to crack a joke or two, or spend at least 5 minutes with them before you kiss them. I mean, because now I don't know if you're allowed to kiss people properly now. And
you have to have things called intimacy coordinators now.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's absolutely taboo. I mean, it is quite extraordinary what you cannot do now. You know, I direct plays here at the Academy, the American Academy, which is the equivalent of RADA in England. And what I can do with the students, what I can't do. I mean, I have to ask them, if a student touches another student, I have to ask both students if they're comfortable with that. And any idea of a kiss, a person, a special coordinator has to come into the room and arrange and coordinate it and choreograph it. I can't do it myself as the director. You know, slapping faces, you don't do it anymore. Certainly not in drama schools. When I was at drama school, I used to get slapped regularly in plays, always slapped. You know, if a girl slaps you, a woman slaps you on the face, she slapped you. Now, no, it's absolutely taboo now, and it's faked now. So, yes, I suspect in Carolyn and my day, intimacy was something which we got used to, really, you know. And
well, you either did it or you didn't, and if you weren't willing to do it, you probably did not get a lot of jobs.
Yeah, you could lay down rules for yourself. I mean, I used to say, I don't take my trousers off. I'll take my top off, but I won't take my trousers off. And they said, what about down to underpants? I said, no, sorry, thick flannel trousers. That was my rule, but it was okay. You know, I got away with that. But now men, young men now,
how did you get away?
Exposed more than women, as far as I can see.
That wasn't fair.
No, I know.
I mean, because as a woman, you just didn't. You really had to be okay with taking a gear off. Otherwise, I mean, most of the movies in the 70s were when involved women with no clothes on.
Yeah. Now they involve men with no clothes on. So
yeah, they do a lot. Thank goodness, tit for tat, as they say.
Absolutely.
So I think Carolyn's character in this episode is probably one of the most interesting, complex, I think, that we've so far discussed, Ian, in your episodes. What do you both feel about the character of Lady Stevens?
Carolyn, you do it because it's your character.
You know, I played a lot of women like that. You know, I like those complex women. I like them much more than playing the goody two shoes. I mean, I get completely lost when I have to play nice. I get very confused by that. My voice doesn't go with it, but I am not good at playing nice people. I've always played those sociopathic sort of, you know, murderers. Really.
I agree. I think it was a very interesting character. Of course, the plot is taken straight from Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, which is, you know, it's the same plot. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just think to make them two women was a rather splendid idea. And I do think Carolyn made the most spectacularly wonderful baddie in the world. Really, you were super bad in it all the way through. Then of course it turned out at the end that you were actually off your rocker, weren't you? Really?
Well,
I mean,
I think one has to be to go to fling people off balconies and things like that. You know, I think one probably is a little off one's rocker.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So, and I take it playing the villain is always a bit more fun anyway. Are they more? Do you find them more complex, Carolyn? Do you find there's more to get into?
Well, there's much more to get your teeth into, and the thing is to try not to give it away too early. You know, they're just fun. They've got a much wider range, and you can have enormous fun with it and relish it. You know, I mean, for a while there was a time, you know, certainly when I got to America, and I realized that the American actress wasn't crazy about relishing being evil. I mean, English actors were so much better at it. But the American actors always thought, well, they have to be nice. You know, you've got to find something you love about these people. I mean, why? You don't have to. But they do. They all of them have. I gave all of them a sort of little quirk. I mean, they all had something that I knew people would relate to. But I love playing those characters. I love it. Love it. Love it.
Curiously, in America, where I've been here for many years, most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, I played bad guys too. And I once asked a casting director, why is it in America, on American television, for instance, that English people are usually the bad guys? And he laughed. He said, I'll tell you the honest truth. He said, because here in Hollywood, you're the only ethnic group that doesn't mind. We've run through all the other bad guys, the Native Americans or African Americans or Arab people, anything. Now people, they all object. They say it's discriminatory, but you Brits seem to quite like playing bad guys, so it's easy to make you the bad guys because you're the only ones that don't object. So that's a good reason in Hollywood why English people are quite often.
Okay. And usually because our voices are a lot deeper.
Yes, right. We're suspect the moment we open our mouths, aren't we?
Exactly. High cheekbones, deep voice, and you got it. You're the evil.
Yeah.
I want to ask about Ian McCulloch, who plays Inspector Stone. Do either of you two have any memories of him?
He's a nice, solid English actor, a very handsome guy. I thought he should have actually, Yes, he actually had a very good career, solid, good stuff, Again, it was such a long time ago, and I'd never worked with him before, and I didn't work with him since. No. So my memories of him are fuzzy, really. But we never had anybody on that show apart from Carolyn Seymour who was ever difficult. Only Carolyn Seymour was the difficult one. Everybody else was perfectly lovely, all the time.
We know each other quite well.
Yeah, we've known each other many years.
Ian was lovely, and I went on to do a series with him called Survivors. So he, I got to know him really well, and he's still wonderful. He was always a bit grumpy, but wonderful stories and wonderfully funny, dry, lovely humor, and
there you go. So you know him, and I don't at all. So
I adore Ian. I love him, and he lives in the wilds of Scotland, where he says he prefers to be because he doesn't see anyone. But he's not like that at all. He's a lovely, lovely guy. He's very bright, and he writes and he does all sorts of things. He's a heavenly man. He's a heavenly man. Hopefully, I'll see him quite soon.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about just about the Inspector. It's a good point, Ian. You never had like Inspector Teal, like Sir Roger Moore had. You never had it. Would you have liked to had that kind of sort of running through it more?
Well, it was discussed with Robert Baker, the producer, initially whether or not there ought to be like another regular or semi-regular character, and he decided he didn't want one. He said he didn't think he needed it. It was one of those rare shows where I was the only person on it. I was the only regular. Me and Angela Lansbury in Murder, She Wrote, almost, there aren't very many shows that only have one leading person in them. It makes the work doubly hard, of course. Well, not hard, but double the load, really, or treble the load if you've got more than another person. But I think it was decided by the producer that they didn't really need a policeman at all. They thought it was maybe a slightly old-fashioned idea, and yeah. It was Ivor Dean, wasn't it? It was Ivor Dean in the original TV series, who I worked with on a film called The Sorcerers. Lovely Ivor Dean. He was great fun. Yeah.
Oh, good. Worth a mention is the character of Lou, who is the guy who sells the gun to Carolyn. And I think it's quite interesting when you knock him off his bicycle, sort of showing the more sort of tougher sides because I think your Saint is perhaps not as obviously as perhaps as physical as Roger. So did you like having those bits where who was a bit tougher?
Yes, there was a sort of a gentrification or a gentlification, if you like, of my Saint because of the tenor of the times. We got rid of all the guns, for instance, and things. We didn't have them. Yes, it was always fun to do those little action shots, and so, yeah. They're always much more difficult than they look, and they take a much longer time than they look. But yes, I enjoyed all those sort of things. Yeah.
I think a good time to mention Sarah Douglas for watching the scene in the perfumery at the moment. So it's Carolyn and Sarah together. What do you both recall of Sarah Douglas?
Well, So we're still friends. We had a bit of a gap where we didn't speak for a while, not for any other reason other than we were a continent apart from each other. But I knew, I got to know her really well in America, and then she came back, and then I didn't speak to her, but we got on terribly well. We got on famously. We talk to each other now. I just spoke to her last week, actually.
Really? Is she well?
Yeah, she's very well. She's very
If you
well.
talk to her again soon, will you send her my love?
Of course I will.
I don't know her terribly well, but yeah, I know her well enough. Yeah, saw her occasionally in here in LA when she was here. Is she living in England now, or where? Do you know?
Yeah, no, she lives in England. Lives in
Right.
England.
Mm.
She's
And
doing
again,
well. She's got a little production company. She does her own movies.
Does she really? Right.
Yeah.
I must say the Superman thing must have helped her along enormously, mustn't it? Probably. You know, lovely, very nice gig that was.
Very nice gig, that one. Yeah.
I mean, this would be, chronologically speaking, probably after she'd shot the first one and most of two, before then finishing off two in 1980. So she was, had a few things under her belt by this time.
Yes, I don't think had it come out though when she was shooting that, because we would have been besieged by fans in the street if she.
Yeah, that came out December 78. So yeah, this was before, but she would have filmed it, but not released. Yeah.
So she was just waiting to be very, very, very famous then, was she?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I just one observation I think is that the episode is called The Arrangement, but it's never actually referred to as The Arrangement. It just sort of struck me as being but why the episode wasn't called The Agreement or something like that, I'm not sure. But did you find that the episode titles would change a little bit from what was in the script to the final version?
No, I don't think they did. I mean, what was on the front of the cover of the script pretty much stayed, and most of the writers of these scripts had written for the Roger Moore series, and quite a lot of their stories were rehashed versions of episodes they'd written for Roger, just brought up to date a little bit. So instead of Nazi spies or communists, we had things like Black September terrorists and things like that. But it was essentially the same plot. And this one, as you know, was taken from a Hitchcock movie of the 1940s or early 50s, was it? I think, I don't know. Yeah, Strangers on a Train.
Well, I think
Strangers on a Plane, wasn't it?
Yeah. And there is also, I think, a reference to the title at the end of the episode. We're not strangers anymore. So of course that's a nod to the film. I was just wondering what you both felt about the script in general. Do you recall going into it, Carolyn, that this was quite a good thing to be involved with?
Well, of course it was. I mean, I in those days, I literally needed to work. So if somebody came along and said, "You've got a job," I'd barely ask what it was. I would sort of, I didn't get grand about what I was going to play for quite a while. But I mean, this was obviously going to be fun. And Peter said, "I need somebody. Do you want to do it?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I was in that wonderful position just then because, I was beginning to be noticed, and people wanted me they did, for some stupid reason, wanted me in their pieces. So I said, absolutely. And then it turned out to be a huge blast. So
Denise Furman, who's a friend of mine who's watching at the moment, Carolyn, said that you're her favorite baddie.
Oh, darling. Well, thank you, Denise. I'll take that. Thank you.
I've talked about the scripts before, haven't I, Philip, on these shows? I've talked about the fact that I would tinker with them a little bit here and there, simply because sometimes they were just so cheesy. Really, some of the dialogue was wonderfully, I don't know, cheesy is what I would say.
But we didn't have to. We were able to ad lib sometimes. We didn't have.
Yes, we were, and also, I used to say to the fellow actors, "Look, I've rewritten this speech, but you'll get the same cue, and it'll be the same length, and it'll have the same meaning. It's just I've changed some of the awful words and things." I mean, we had this American producer who wrote things like, "You be careful, or I'll see you in the morgue," and things, lines like that, which I would go, I despair of this sort of stuff. It's terrible, and I would try and tinker with it and fiddle about with it. Yeah.
No, he didn't mind.
No.
I think it should be noted that the writer of this particular episode passed away at the age of 48 before the episode came out.
Really? Who's that?
It was Anthony Turpaloff. I think that's how you pronounce it. This was his only Return of the Saint, but he did things like Space 1999 and the Avengers, and sort of in the same sort of kind of area. And I think it is one of those episodes. I think that the dialogue is very tight. I think.
No, I liked it. I mean, yes, I mean, I thought on the whole this was one of the better episodes, quite honestly. First of all, I wasn't rescuing damsels in distress, really, not really at all. And it was just a wonderful. It was actually Carolyn's episode. Let's face it. It belonged to her, not to anybody else. That's good.
Yeah, I know that a lot of the other guest actors on the show had to provide their own costumes in many cases. Was that the same with your wardrobe, Carolyn? Did you have an input, or did you wear your own stuff, or was it?
Absolutely not.
No.
I had a wonderful friend called Bill Gibb, and he was a designer, and so most of what I was wearing was donated, was lent to me by him. He just wanted me to wear wonderful stuff. Unfortunately, I wear fur in this, which was a bit of I would never do that now. But his clothes were perfect for me in those days. He was a lovely, lovely man.
So did you say to the wardrobe supervisor on the show, "I'm wearing this," from Bill Gibb, and they were delighted that you were?
Well, I said no. I was a little more diplomatic. I said, my friend Bill Gibb has offered to make my clothes for me. Would that upset you? And they all went, because he was the hot young guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because we did a fashion show for him at the Albert Hall, and all of my friends were there wearing his clothes and all looking marvelous, and so they were thrilled. So that's what I got, all the hats and the fur and the.
Yes. It was brilliant, but also the fact is, it also saved a ton of money, of course, as well.
Well, it was a ton of money, except when we got one of the danglies on a fur coat stuck in that damned escalator.
Wow!
We lost one of the furry tails down there. We had to go down it underneath into the bowels and get the furry tail back.
That's funny. I didn't know that. That's hysterical.
There's quite a bit of a political commentary in this episode, I think. Well, of course, the nature that Carolyn's character is married to a politician, and there's lots of people in high sort of positions, and there's the notion of some people are untouchable or above reproach because of their standing. There's a lovely line, I think, Ian, when you're on the phone to the inspector and you say, well, of course, politicians never lie, do they? And so was it kind of, was it nice to have that kind of commentary? And do you think kind of it ever does, it's universal, isn't it? These things never change, unfortunately, do they?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was fun. Yes. Yeah. I mean,
nothing changes, does it?
No, it doesn't change.
I mean, at least it's changing here a bit, but certainly not over there.
No, we're in terrible trouble here in the States.
I know.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to get into politics. This is not a political forum, but yeah. Yeah, it's always nice to have a dig at a politician, isn't it? I mean, they kind of expect it, so that's all right. Yeah. Yeah.
I was wondering, Carolyn, about the you have a very nice Lotus that you're driving in this episode. Was it nice to do that?
I was shameless in that car. I would take it off. I would just disappear for 5 minutes or so. Right, put my foot down. When we'd wrap the scenes, I would just take it off for a ride. They got used to it, but it scared them a bit. But it was such fun to drive. Double declutching and things. It was great. It's great.
Yeah, we had some good cars on that show, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah. And also when you play the baddies, like I tended to do, I got all the good cars. I got the first sort of, hot cars that came off the thing. So it was great. I loved all that. I could drive a tractor, so I thought I could drive the car. And most of the time I could.
And I know you were saying, Ian, that there was certainly a desire to remove the guns out from the series, make it a bit more sort of sellable to the American markets. And so he wanted to sort of make it quite sort of a child-friendly show.
Yeah.
I think that's right in saying. But of course, this episode does have a lot of adult themes. It's very sort of, it's there's being bisexual, and there's being sort of using sex as a weapon, I suppose, or in like a basic instinct almost sort of way. What did you feel about sort of do you think it was kind of too much, or do you think it was perfect, or how do you feel that element?
No, I don't. To be honest, Philip, I don't remember noticing that it was edgy. I just thought it was a good episode, and somebody else had to do a lot of the work, which was always rather nice for me. I don't remember it being edgy particularly. I don't remember any of the episodes really being controversial anyway. The only one I remember being so controversial was one that we never made, which I think I've talked about before, which was the vampire episode, which I stood on, and I said we can't do this. This is ridiculous. And I was getting an argument not from Bob Baker, the producer, but from the writer, and I got hold of Leslie Charteris, the writer of The Saint, who was quite an old man then. And I said to him, Leslie, we have to do something about this episode. And he said, I'm amazed you haven't called me before about any of the others. But he said, don't worry. He said, I couldn't agree with you more, and we won't do this episode. Don't worry about it. I'll be the bad guy. I will flatly refuse to allow them to do it. It's absolute nonsense. That was the only episode I think that really caught my eye and was so awful that we decided not to do it. But this one, in terms of controversy, yes, I don't know. I just liked the plot. It was such fun having a female bad guy. That made a change as well.
And just watching the nightclub scene at the moment. Brian Pettifer plays the bartender, and he appears, of course, in a plethora of film and TV shows. Do you remember Brian at all, Ian?
I know who you mean, and I know him as an actor. Again, it was a very brief moment in a 10-day shoot, and no, I don't remember that scene particularly. It is funny, because Carolyn will back me up on this, and that is that stuff you shot 35, 40, 45 years ago, you don't really remember individual things. Certain episodes I remember very well. But this one, I remember bits of it. I remember Carolyn being funny with Peter. I remember that kind of thing. But I don't remember individual scenes. You sometimes go, how can you not remember something that you were actually in? Well, we Carolyn and I were in, I guess, a lot of things in those days, and they do kind of fly out of your mind a bit, don't they?
God, they do. I mean, this is what's so awful about it, is that you want to remember all those lovely moments, but you don't, and it's just the way that is, because life gets in the way. I mean, I think the people probably watching us probably haven't even done 50 years worth of different jobs, which makes a big difference.
But I've been in my current job 12 years, and I can't remember what I did in year 1, year 2, year 3, let alone 10 days of a certain, unless it's pops out at you for some reason, traumatically, or it was great or something. I remember when we were talking about maybe getting Sarah Douglas to join us. I know she watched the episode and she just couldn't remember anything at all, nothing. so that was what basically why she didn't want to do it, because she just kind of felt, well, just be sitting here looking, uncomfortable, which is fair enough. I wanted
but when you do an awful lot of these, I mean, episodic was really the bread and butter for a while, and when you do a lot of them, the format sort of is the same. So with no disrespect to anybody, you end up. I played the baddie so often that it was just, who am I killing this week and where do I stand? It was a little like that, and it was friends that made it fun and lovely to do. I mean, the English actor on the whole is much more fun to work with. They don't take themselves quite so seriously as American actors do, which in some ways might hurt their performances, but I never noticed that it did. We had this wonderful knack of having a wonderful time all the time. But which is why we love working too. It's lovely to go to work, but it's also the friendships you make and the laughter that you have and the camaraderie is just it's a joy to go to work every day. But they do sort of meld a bit.
Yep.
Perhaps a bit of just trivia just for those watching really. We just watched the moment where you've run over the psychiatrist who's trying to but it's played by Peter Burton, who was the first Q in the Bond series and Dr. No before Desmond Llewellyn took over. So I just thought that might be worth mentioning. There is a scene that when you're rescuing Sarah's sister, there's a lot of gunplay here, and some of the poses that you strike in looked almost identical to what Roger Moore was doing in, say, The Spy Who Loved Me. Was there kind of a conscious decision to kind of mimic? Because I know like covers of some of the magazines that came out, you sort of have like Bond-like poses. Was that kind of intentional?
I'm sure it was.
Yeah,
I'm sure. When actors copy from the best, good actors copy from the best. I'm perfectly happy to copy Roger Moore or Sean Connery or Tim Dalton or any of them. I'm sure that pose was an absolute copy of Bond. Yes, I'm sure it was. Yeah. Yes, looking at it now, it's all a bit silly, really, because I've got a silly grin on my face, and I've got to. Yeah, but yes, I'm sure it was copied.
The good thing is that you don't blink while the gun's fired, and Roger always did, of course. So
oh, did he?
Yeah.
Always.
That's funny.
Even in his gun barrel, which was used on 5 of his films, he blinks in that. So
blinks on that.
It's really hard not to blink when you're shooting a gun. It's really hard because the recoil is quite intense.
And now they don't do it at all. They put it all in on post now. You've got a little dummy gun, and you have to pretend to shoot it. And nothing comes out, and it doesn't make a noise. And they do it all in post, and it's It's very unsatisfying shooting a gun these days on film. I'll tell you.
It
doesn't look as good, does it? Either I think you can kind of tell it's
you can tell it's been done in post. Yeah.
So
it's just ridiculous when we're supposed to be mimicking reality. And we're not. It's sort of crazy.
Would you have both got a bit of, if you had to use a weapon, would you have got a bit of an induction about it? Would you got a bit of training to do certain things?
Yes, not as much as you get now. I mean, now it's intensive what you do with a gun. And, you hear the stories about poor old Alec Baldwin, well, not poor old, but Alec Baldwin shooting. That was an extraordinary story. And that should never even be thought to happen in today's movies. And you're taught to point the gun at the floor all the time, even if it's a dummy gun and it's got nothing in it at all. You point it at the floor. You don't put your finger on the trigger, anything like that. Yes, in those days, back then, there was limited instruction. The instruction was you hold it here and you pull this thing, and then it makes a noise. And that was kind of the instruction, really. Yeah, I loved it. It's always fun shooting guns, particularly machine guns. Submachine guns. We had a bit of that in early episodes of The Saint. Stuff we shot in the south of France. We had a little bit of machine gun fire, and that was a huge amount of fun, of course. But that's no longer. Yeah.
So do you always find it fun, Carolyn, doing that?
I always find. I mean, I loved all that stuff. But I mean, I also grew up on a farm, so I learned to shoot. I mean, not that I shot the animals, but I used to have to shoot rabbits and things sometimes, but I stopped very quickly because it wasn't my sort of thing. But I had to learn how to do that, and I shot. I had used a lot of weapons in a lot of shows. I really have done, and I don't remember a lot of people. I remember armorers saying, "Just don't point it at people, and be careful with it, and this is what you do in it." And they put it, making sure that they put blanks in, but submachine guns I found really hard because they weigh quite a lot, and so that was quite sort of trying for me. But I've used all sorts of weapons. I did a show called Modesty Blaze where I was the baddie in that. used a lot of strange weapons.
Two people I just want to mention, and again, if either of them trigger any bells, just let me know. Gregory Monroe, who plays Otis. He's the black gentleman who is in league with the maid. He's notable because well, he was the son of Carmen Monroe, the very famous stage actress. Again, she had quite a prolific career and still with us. And Jane Hayden, who plays Sarah's sister in the episode, I think is very good as well. I just wanted to sort of coming towards the end. There's this lovely confrontation between you're coming up the stairs and the elevator to the apartment, and of course you go through the elevator shaft. Of course, no elevator has a roof. You can, that's very much a Hollywood made up thing. But did you I take it you probably did the rope climbing, and that was fun to do?
No, it was absolutely horrendous to do, because they said, could you at least climb like a couple of feet up this cable? And it's actually almost impossible to climb up an elevator cable, a lift cable. It first of all, it's rigid. It's not like a rope which you can manipulate and bend. It's absolutely rigid. Secondly, it's kind of slippery because it's got grease on it. And I found that I wasn't. When you climb a rope, there's a way of wrapping your leg around the rope. It's sort of counterintuitive, but it's the only way of doing it. You can't really do that with a cable. So I said, you know something? I can pull myself up like a foot off the ground, but I actually can't climb it at all. And the stuntman came down and tried it, and he said, no, you're right, it's actually impossible to climb this. So that was all fake. I didn't do any climbing at all of that thing, because it was pretty much impossible. When you see people shimming up and down lift cables, you can be sure that they're not really doing it.
No.
Now, of course, we're going to have 100 phone calls saying, yes, of course you can do it. I've done it 100 times. What are you talking about?
Well,
yeah.
Carolyn, have you had to do lots of a few stunts in your career, and do you have anything that was particularly a favourite for you?
I think again, my favourite stunt was zooming around on a quad bike in the sewers of LA with a machine gun. That was probably one of my favourite things. And another time when I was in Natchez, Mississippi with some defanged rattlesnakes. That was another fun stunt.
Did you enjoy that?
No, because they had to cut the fangs out of the. Apparently they grow back, so the wrangler said they won't hurt you, and I just kept wondering how painful it must have been for them.
Yes.
Sitting there with about 4 of them on me.
Did they try and bite you?
No.
No.
They were kept very cold, so they were completely sort of sleepy, and they livened up a bit after a while because it was the middle of the summer and I was wearing heavy tweed.
Right. So they got warmer sitting on you.
They felt warmer very quickly. But that was a little scary, but otherwise,
And we're just now watching the climax of the episode, and Carolyn, you just jumped off the building. It's quite a surprising end. There's a few episodes of Return of the Saint that kind of throw you curveballs like that. What did you both think of the ending of the episode?
I don't remember having an opinion about it, frankly.
No?
I mean, I just probably a good thing.
I think it was an easy way out. It was an easy way to end it, and it was kind of logical. Otherwise, you'd have to go through the whole business of what happens to this lady? Does she go to the trial? Blah, blah, blah. It's a neat ending. Maybe a little pat, a little bit easy, but it was certainly a neat ending. And I just think the Saint should have stopped her. I think he should have leapt forward in one bound and grabbed her hand but never mind, he didn't. So that was that.
But then you'd have been stuck with a whole other thing.
I know. Then you're stuck with all the questions.
Very good idea that she jumped.
Yeah.
You say it, but maybe a bit sort of slightly forced, but if it feels natural to the character. Have you both had roles or films or TV where you've had your character then is something that you're not happy with, or has a resolution
Something
you're not
out
happy
of
with, you've
character,
had to
you mean?
kind of
Doing something
intervene
out of
and
character?
yeah, that's right.
I don't know. I think most of these things are fairly well written, and people don't, on the whole, write stuff that's out of character. I mean, I don't know whether you thought that was out of character, whether she would have survived or what. I don't know. She's a very strong person. She's a very strong character, lady thing, and I
But
don't
she
know.
was she you know she had issues, and she was just going to carry on. If she didn't die, she was going to carry on. She had to.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
I think certainly at the beginning of the episode you wouldn't see her doing that, but as she starts to get unhinged, and Carolyn very cleverly breaks her down and starts to, because she's not a sympathetic character to begin with in any shape or form. There's some very sort of witty dialogue, sort of having sort of, digs at her, and quite rightly. But as you go along, she does become sympathetic. I think you feel sorry for her as an audience member. Is that the key when you've got a villainous character, to try and find their humanity?
It's a part of it. It's absolutely a part of it, because I mean, people that you know and love have done horrible things, and you never know where. I mean, she definitely had a mental quirk, but there people do things out of love and out of they do things because, and you don't, and it's completely out of character, and you can't believe it. That's the interesting part about playing the baddies, though, because you just have to find that's what makes them the most complex characters and the most interesting to play.
Also, I mean, I guess she was being hemmed in on all sides, wasn't she? I mean, she could see that she wasn't going to get away with this. I suppose, in a way, it's a logical ending, really. Somebody wrote here that they thought it was the best ending, so that's good.
Yeah. Good. No, because I think, people. She was very bright too, so
yeah,
she obviously knew she wasn't going to get away with it. And the one thing she wasn't going to put up with is being stuck in a prison cell forever. Or,
Right.
Well, yes, as I was going to say, she was running away from the psychiatrist, so you knew she didn't want to be
redeemed.
So, well, yes, she didn't. She's not a character seeking redemption either, is she? So sometimes
no, she wasn't in it to do that. So.
No. I should probably mention a little turn by Sandra Dickinson at the end of the episode. I think it's a very nice little tag. Do you remember Sandra, Ian?
I remember being so impressed that we got Sandra Dickinson to do it, because Sandra then was not an unknown person at all, and it was just a little tiny cameo. And it's actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie, that, because she's very funny and sparkly and things. Yes, it was nice. I liked her. That, yeah, we were very lucky to get her, and I don't know why we got her, and I don't know how we got her. I have no idea. Do you know her? Did you know her, Carolyn? Do you know her?
No, darling, I didn't. No. But she was always, she was always fun.
Yeah. And again, one of those expats, one of those expats. She's American too, isn't she?
Yeah, I think, yeah, of course she is.
Yes. And so again, one of those expat Americans living in London and never stopping working. But she was fun, and it was a nice little scene. Yeah, we were lucky.
And there's probably certain shows that, as an actor, you want to be a part of. So something like The Saint or The Avengers, whatever it might be. Were there shows that both of you kind of maybe not wanted to go on, but your ears pricked up when somebody mentioned you might be in the running for it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we were all working actors, and we went from job to job, and we looked forward to the next one, and we waited sometimes a long time for the next one. And when it came along, we were very delighted to get it. The idea that the average working English actor is picky or choosy about what they do is actually daft. It's a daft idea, because most of the time we're just terribly grateful to be offered a job, and that might have been with Sandra. She might have said, "I'm not doing anything for a couple of months." Oh gosh, yes, that's a nice little thing for me to do, and it's worth my while, simply because it's got some content to it. There's something there, But also, she might have just said, "Yeah, I could use the money."
Yes, yeah.
You might have heard that.
Yeah. I think most actors say just go what job comes along, but it's never been anything where you both have just said, "I don't want to do this." Something
Yeah.
there is.
Yeah. Yes, I was offered a film with Jane Seymour, who was a lovely lady and all the rest of it. And it involved bed scenes, and I'm very, very old. And I said, I'm sorry, I do not believe anybody in their right minds wants to see me in bed with Jane Seymour. I don't understand why anybody would want to see this. Oh, but it's very interesting and blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, I'm sorry, I just don't want to do it. I mean, if I was 40, possibly, but I'm well over that. And so I turned that down. And they were very sweet because they kept coming back to me saying, well, there's another role. There's another role. How about that? And I said, does it involve going to bed with Jane Seymour? And they said, yes. I said, no, I don't want to do that. And eventually I played a little tiny role of a customer in a bookshop because they just kept pestering me. But they were very sweet. I mean, it was very flattering that they wanted me that badly. Very, very flattering indeed. So, but I drew the line. I draw the line at something that is, I think, totally inappropriate and not something I would want to see as a member of the audience. So I don't want to do it. Yeah, but very rarely. Carolyn, have you turned down stuff?
Well, yes, I turned down tampon commercial.
Tampon commercial.
Yeah, I just wasn't going to do that.
No. That's funny.
I mean, a great friend of mine did do them and made a lot of money because she had to pay off the ex-husband. But I wasn't never in that situation, so I never felt the need to do a tampon commercial. But the one I did want to do, and I auditioned for the Avengers, and I've never understood why I wasn't in the real running for that. But you know,
yeah.
Thorson got it, so there you
Thorson
go.
got it. Well, I did an episode with Thorson. I played a German baron with dyed blonde hair.
Oh,
I was very young.
She was such fun. She still is. She's such fun. Such fun.
I think of Linda getting the role, I think it was kind of one of those things where it was who she knew at the time. I think it was that kind of why she got, one of the reasons why she got the role, I think, for the event.
Well, I mean, I did a lot of auditioning for those things. I also auditioned for a part in one of the Bonds, and when they were looking for the new Bond after I suppose it was after Sean. I mean, they called me in because I knew them socially. I knew both Harry and Cubby, and so they said, would I come in and test all the prospective Bonds? And I said, yes, sure. And I thought, well, this is surely going to give me a part. And I was thrown about and kissed and mauled and generally horribly treated for about 2 weeks down at the studios, and then was told, thanks a lot, we found our guy. And then I waited for a job, and didn't happen. It didn't happen. Jane Seymour got that. She got Solitaire.
Right.
So that'd been seven.
That's the business for you, you know.
Yeah.
That'd been 7.
Always bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yeah.
So that'd been about sort of 1972 sort of time. What was Harry and Chloe Broccoli like? I'm always interested to hear about those two.
Oh, I mean, Harry, they were great. They were great. I mean, they were just what you would expect. I mean, they were both, they were a little like, forgive me, but Tweedledum and Tweedledee, they were both round and short, and you felt that if you pushed them, they would sort of just bobble back at you. And they were, but they were very, very smart. They certainly knew what they needed, and they never made them. They didn't put a foot wrong. Ken Adams, I knew Ken Adams, who did the design, and when he was the art director, he was brilliant. There's so many good people in that. It was just, they didn't put a foot wrong, and they expected. They were really tough producers.
Oh yeah,
but nice people.
And you say you knew Roger Moore as well, did you?
Yeah.
Well, what was? Did you have any interesting memories of Roger you want to share?
So I mean, Roger was exactly what you'd expect. He was charming. He was funny. He never took himself too seriously, but he worked really hard, and he was a delight. He was an absolute delight.
And did you ever meet Robert S. Baker, Carolyn?
Yes, I did. Yeah, he took me to horse races. I remember we went once to Santa Anita racetrack in America, and I was living there, and he came over, and he said, come, let's go to the races. I'm going this afternoon. And we got into an elevator, and there was this very debonair chap in the back of the elevator, and I turned around and he turned around and I stopped. I couldn't breathe. It was Cary Grant, and I could not breathe. I was so excited. He's such a hero of mine. Adored him.
Yeah. Ian, do you have any heroes that you've met that you've been a bit starstruck by anybody in your life?
Oh God. Oh wow. Actually, I did meet Cary Grant too, and he was a rather hero of mine. Actually, yeah. In fact, when I've told the story before, when I did The Saint, and the very first episode, Robert Baker came to me, the producer, and said, "Oh, by the way, Ian, remember tomorrow when we start shooting, not too English," which I have no idea what he meant by that. And I realized he wasn't all that happy with the first few days' rushes. And one day, as a gag, I did a kind of very bad imitation of Cary Grant on a line. And he saw the rushes. He came to me that night. He said, "That's it. That's what I." So after that, it's one of the reasons why I do it. There are elements of Cary Grant in the way I deliver my lines all the way through that show because of that. And one of the critics, when the show came out, one of the critics said, "Why is Ian Ogilvy doing an atrociously bad imitation of Cary Grant?" That's why is the answer. Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously you can hear it in your performance, and yeah, I think I recall the first time I ever saw the series, I thought, oh yeah, that's a Cary Grant kind of esque to it, but
Well, again, copy from the best, you see.
Well, yes,
copy from the best.
Right. Is that something you find, Carolyn, when you make a role, you're borrowing a bit from other people, or kind of how you kind of build a performance up?
Not consciously, but obviously one does. I mean, you know, I was when I did a play once, which had a whole bunch of the most sophisticated women I've ever seen in my life or ever met when I was very young, and they taught me how to sort of drape on furniture, and they taught me how to, you know, don't just look elegant, just stand there. Well, how to put my foot, how to do this, how to, you know, and yeah, I probably copied some of those.
And I was just wondering how your approach, Carolyn, it's to a character in general terms. Do you obviously you're guided by the script, but will you do a lot of research or a lot of roles, or you kind of sort of build it as you go along?
I do research, but I don't do massive research. What I do is I just begin to absorb her, you know, whatever she is, and I that's what I just live with her a lot. I spend a lot of time with her in my head after that, and I don't think about much else really. And sort of go from there, and then it'll suddenly click when I know exactly who she's going to be. So it'll click, but it takes a while to get there. She's in my dreams. She's in everything I do. I think I figure out a different way of doing things that isn't me, but what might be her and stuff like that. It's a process. It just goes on in my head for a long time.
And how about you, Ian? Is it a similar sort of process, or?
Yes, I suppose so. I don't do research because for me it doesn't make me any better or worse. You know, I just play what's on the page really. Well, I'm inclined to drop it when I'm not doing it. Every actor is different. We're all different. We all have our different processes and things. You know, yeah.
Because you do hear some actors that really struggle to let a character go, what really invades into their life, and sometimes with quite terrible consequences.
I never bring them home. No.
You sort of can let them go.
No, I don't bring mine home either. I mean, you know, they're there always in the back of my mind, but once I've got them, I don't. They come out during the day and they go back in at night.
Do you have a favorite character, Carolyn, from your TV, film, or stage work you've played?
No, not really. I mean, no, not really. Not really. I love doing all of them, really. I mean, they were just lots of fun. I just, you know, what I wish desperately is that I could be as relaxed as I am now with them then. You know, I would have done a lot more with them. Oh well.
Oh well. On that note.
Well, I was going to, so just sort of start to wrap up. Oh, but so Ian, do you agree with Carolyn's comment that over time you get more relaxed as an actor, and therefore do you feel you get better, or just?
I think I certainly got
easier?
better over the years. I was awful when I was young. I was dreadful at acting. I just looked nice, you know. That's why I got jobs. I just looked nice. And then over the years, I began to realize just what was entailed with this business, and I think I got better. I hope I got better. I sure as hell hope I didn't get worse, you know. Now, of course, acting terrifies me because now I don't want to learn the lines. I'm lovely doing a radio play or something like that, but the idea of going on stage is scary to me now, and I don't want to do that. But there was a time when one became fairly confident in oneself, and I would say that would be late middle age. Really, is when I was reasonably kind of okay. I think I know what I'm doing now. Finally,
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but it's very different for women at that stage. You know, I became very comfortable, and then suddenly when I hit menopause, it was a different story. I mean, I suddenly lost my confidence again. So it was really a tough time, and I was very fortunate. You know, I was doing a play, and I really had a bit of a teeny weeny breakdown there. I didn't know quite who I was for a while there, and that was scary. That was scary, and I was very well supported through that time by my director, you know, who could have let me go and put my understudy on, who I thought was going to be much better than me. But it's those sort of things, you know, that period of time for women can be incredibly confusing, and I went through every second of it. But I then managed to do something just recently where I found that I could remember my lines, and I wasn't fazed by it, and it was great fun.
Hey, well done.
I was very happy to do that.
You've both done a lot of audio work, either radio or audio dramas, etc. Is that a medium that you're both quite comfortable with?
Oh, I love.
Lovely. You don't have to go into the costume department. You don't have to go into the makeup department. You don't have to learn your lines. You stand there in front of a microphone, and everything's done with the voice. It's not as easy as people think, because you don't have your body and your face to help project your role, or you've only got your voice. But it's a wonderful exercise for actors, and it's a lovely. I love it. Yeah.
I adore it. I just love it.
You've had a question come in from Denise for Carolyn. Do you have any memories of The Bitch and Joan Collins?
Yes, unfortunately. Not our happiest time. Joan was miserable doing it. I mean, I did it because we were friends, and I knew that we just decided to do it together, because then it would be, you know, at least, you know, help. she didn't want to do it, but she had to make the money, and you know, so we did it. We were neither of us too thrilled to do it, but Bill Gibb came to the rescue with the costumes again, which was a good thing.
And just to sort of another crossover you both have, of course, is Murder, She Wrote, and Ian's talked a lot about how lovely that show was. I was just wondering whether, Carolyn, you also had a lovely time on that series.
Oh my God, that woman was excuse the pun, was a saint. I mean, she gave you such faith as an actor, because you didn't have to audition. She was the one who decided. She worked so hard. She just said it was, and also it was favored nation, so all the actors got the same amount. You didn't feel that you were demoted or less than or anything. She wanted you. She cast you. I made an offer. You said yes or no if you could. You went and did it. You had the best time of your life. You had to be on your toes, because she was on top of everything. She was the most amazing producer, and she always got these great people. I had some of the best husbands ever on that show. I loved it. I loved working on that show, and working with Steph Beecham and all of those people. I mean, we had a great time. It was such a good time.
And I was just wondering, do you have a favorite TV show that you guested on? I imagine this probably sits pretty good on, you know, probably up there. But what might be some of the other good TV shows that you remember?
I had the best one I ever had was a show called Early Edition with Fisher Stevens and that other lovely actor whose name Kyle
MacLachlan.
No, Somebody else, the other guy, early edition. Look it up. Somebody help us out. I had a wonderful part in that. Great fun of an English cat thief, cat burglar, but very funny and jolly and cheerful and it's slightly silly. And that was my favorite role I think I had as a guest actor on any American show. That was my favorite. Yeah.
I had quite a few. I mean, I had quite a few. I loved working with Sharon Gless and Tyne Daly. I also loved doing Family Ties. I loved with Michael J. Fox, where I played a French DJ that he falls in love with. Well, falls in, whatever. And then I also did a show. I did an LA Law, I think, where I was completely in the zone with the character and had just the most amazing time on it. So quite a lot of American stuff, which was quite good.
Kyle Chandler, thank you, Denise. Kyle Chandler and Fisher Stevens did a show which wasn't a very long running show called Early Edition, which we shot up in Chicago. Yeah, thank you, Denise.
As it's relevant, of course, with Peter Medic directing, I just wanted to briefly touch on The Ruling Class with Peter O'Toole, whether that was something that you remember fondly.
Well, I remember doing it. Was a very heavy film to do, and I just recently saw it in America with Peter, and he's having a bit of a tough time right now, but he'll get through it. But I always sort of slightly denigrated O'Toole in it because he gave me the most wonderful screen test that I've ever had with any other actor. He was so generous and he gave me everything he had, and I was terrified because he was Peter O'Toole and I'd just done a couple of series. I hadn't done very much, and so it was heaven to work with him like that. And then I because Peter was directing us, I met Peter and I fell in love with Peter, and O'Toole was really miffed that I was. I think he just got really miffed that I was with Peter and wasn't going to sort of be able to go out and hang out with him. The wrong Peter. Pot and Peter, and I think he got very upset. But having seen it just recently, he was so good in that movie, and probably he was at the weakest of his life. He'd just come to terms with all of his his predilections. So he was hell on the shoot, really, because we could only work on him for 4 hours a day. But when he did stuff that was just magical in that movie, and I really wanted it noted somewhere there because I just thought he was an extraordinary actor. Actor, yeah. He was an extraordinary actor. I mean, he was not somebody I would have hung out, I have to say, but he was an extraordinary actor with a childlike heart.
And as somebody doesn't watch their own stuff that often, when you saw that film recently, was it kind of looking at somebody else, or did you kind of? Oh
no, completely somebody else. I mean, I didn't recognize her. I wanted to change everything she did, and it's excruciating. I can't watch myself. It's excruciating. Doesn't help. You can't change it. You're stuck with that. Is what you can't change it. But excruciating.
Do you therefore as actors feel more? Do you therefore as actors feel more comfortable on the stage where you can revise things? Is that ultimately more fulfilling?
Once I've thrown up and gone on for the first time, then I'm all right. But I usually throw up first. I'm one of those people that really gets a bad case of opening night nerves, so they always have to put a bit of earthquake glue on the bottom of the cup so that the cup stays on the saucer and doesn't rattle. But I love having the power over the audience. I love, because you really can. You can pick them up and leave them hanging for a bit and come back later. You really need, if you can do that with them, then they're listening and you're telling the story well. It's fun.
Have you do you get a lot of nerves, Ian, when it comes to live work? Are you fairly sort of Not
Well,
fair.
I mean, I used to be fine, and then slowly, it started bad stage fear, stage fright started with me when I did My Fair Lady, and I played Higgins up in a 2,000-seat theater in San Jose, up in Northern California. Huge production with a 24-piece orchestra. It was extraordinary, and I'm not a singer, and I've never done a musical comedy in my life, and it began there, and it took the form of feeling terribly ill. I just felt like I had flu, and I wasn't going to be able to stand up properly. And it got progressively worse in each production after that I did. And it came to a head when I finally had to stop, and I said, I'm not sure I can do this anymore. Yes, but it happened late in life.
Yeah.
Before that, I was perfectly confident in doing plays. I loved it. I've always loved doing plays. And I still to this day love the idea of it. And I always think to myself, maybe I could go back in a supporting part, not a leading role. I'd probably be fine now. Ian Holm, the lovely actor Ian Holm, went through this. He went through an extraordinary period where he just had to give up for 10 years. And after 10 years, somebody persuaded him to go back, and he went back and he said, "Oh, good Lord, I'm fine. I don't know what all the fuss was about." And that would be nice. But I'm not sitting here on the edge of my seat waiting for anybody to offer me a play, because the last time I did a play, I had to walk away from it. So, you know. Oh.
And Carolyn, do you foresee more stage work in your career? Is that something you'd like to do?
Yes. I mean, having just been given this little gift of doing this little part in a film that I did about a month ago, so 2 months ago, I'm okay. I find that I can remember lines, and I don't have many nerves left, because what are you going to do? I mean, I'm an old broad, to probably die on the stage. But I'd love to do a play. No, I'd love to do a play. I'd like to do a comedy. I don't think I'm like Glenda and can go on and do King Lear at this stage, because I don't really give a damn about that. But I do care about comedy and making people laugh, and I do love comedy. I would love a good old Acorn or something like that to go on, do one of those. If I could make people laugh, it would be worth it.
Because of course, Ian, you guested on a Two Ronnies episode, didn't you? And do you remember what Ronnie Barker and Ronnie Corbett was that?
That was just a lot of fun. That was a huge. I loved, and of course, I did a film with Ronnie Corbett, which was also great fun. As dear, sweet, both of them, lovely, lovely man, and just a great fun thing. Yes, that was with Jenny Agutter.
And last thing, Carolyn, you did a Heart to Heart. Was that good fun?
Heart to Heart was the most amazing thing to do, because I came over to the States and couldn't find work. I had to deal with my alcoholism, and I really had to quit drinking, and it took me 2 years to get going, and I couldn't work, and eventually I got this tiny part on the Angie Dickinson show as an extra, and I was in a shop in an antique store in La Cienega, and the second AD came in and said, "Okay, talent," and he snapped his fingers, and I was walking out of the shop when I bumped into Mark Crowley, who had been a great friend of Peter's and mine in London. And he said, "Hi, darling, what are you doing?" And I said, and that's when the second AD came in and said, "Hey, you're on." And he looked at me and he said, "What, are you an extra in this?" And I said, "Yeah." And he'd known me do it with all the stuff I'd done in London. And he said, "This isn't going to happen. Just wait." 2 weeks later, I was cast in Heart to Heart.
That's a nice story.
And that started my career in LA. And I know I thanked him then, but I got to call him 4 years ago, just before he died. And Peter was talking to him, and I was staying with Peter, and he said, "It's Mart, do you want to say hello?" And I said, "Yes." And I just said, "Mart, I don't know if you're going to remember this, but you gave me my career in America, and you saved my life in many respects." And we both sat there, sort of had a bit of a weep and everything, and it was just wonderful that I was able to really thank him before he died and do all of that. So I was intensely grateful to Mark.
Yeah. Oh, that's a wonderful
story.
Story.
Big story.
That's lovely. I had a question come in from Mark for Ian. Was it great fun working with Eric Morecambe?
Yes, yes, I did two. I did two of that, two Morecambe and White shows actually. One very brief one, and then one where I played Mark Antony opposite Susanna York's Cleopatra and Eric Morecambe's Julius Caesar. And it was Eric had a wreath, you know, one of those laurel wreaths that Roman emperors would wear. And every time he saw Susanna York, all the leaves sprang up. Like, great fun. And it was Ralph Richardson. So Ralph Richardson was another guest on it.
Oh my God.
So Ralph was doing the play What Ernie Wrote, you know, that bit. And Eric came to me once and he said, why does Sir Ralph ask me why I'm saying that line? And I said, is that what Sir Ralph has just done? He said, yeah, he comes up. He said, why are you doing that? So I said, well, what did you tell him, Eric? And I said, because it's funny, Sir Ralph. I said, well, yeah, I think he's probably teasing you, Eric. He's probably having fun at your expense. And they were lovely. Eric brought in old shows of theirs for me to borrow on tape. It was early days of VCR, I think, and I could see some old shows. No, it was great fun. They were a lovely couple and very nice and kind to the guests. And I treasure, I got one of those little sort of cards from them saying, like in old-fashioned writing about appearing on the Morecambe and Wine show. Both of them have the signature at the bottom. It's one of my treasured objects. It's lovely.
Oh, wow.
I've got to go, guys. I'm sorry, I have to go. But are we done now, Philip?
Well, my final question was just wrapping it up. Do you like the episodes? Any favorite moments in the episode? Anything you kind of wanted to add before we go? Any final comments on the show?
Carolyn?
Darling, fun as usual. Fun as usual.
Yes, I mean, I don't. As again, Philip, very, 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 very long time ago. So I don't remember any individual moments in the play, as apart from my story about Carolyn and Peter in Soho. That's what I remember from that show more than anything else.
And it is a fan favorite, as we said, so it holds up very, very well. Well, thank you very much both for a wonderful chat, and it's been great to talk to you this evening.
It's been lovely.
Lovely seeing my old friend Carolyn again.
You too, darling. Lovely.
We miss you. We miss you, darling. We miss you.
I'll see you next time.
All right.
Take care, guys.
Bye all. Bye all.
Bye, Dad.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Lots of love. Thanks, Philip.
That's right. My pleasure.
It's lovely.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, give my best to Peter when you.
I'll be talking to you tonight.
Yeah, been thinking about him. So yeah.
Okay, darling. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself.
You too.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Get me out of here.
Yeah, I'll just yeah.